The heavy iron sledgehammer smashed through the moldy attic drywall, sending a cloud of white dust exploding into the dimly lit room. Marcus, a contractor hired to renovate the old Vance estate in 2019, gasped for air, coughing as the debris cleared. He expected to find rusted pipes or dead insulation. Instead, his flashlight beams sliced through the darkness of a hidden void, instantly catching the reflection of a pair of rusted iron chains bolted directly into a wooden beam. The air that rushed out of the hole smelled ancient, cold, and metallic. Marcus felt his stomach drop as he realized this wasn't just dead space in an old house. It was a purpose-built cage. And on the floor, surrounded by hundreds of empty, dust-covered plastic water jugs, lay a stack of yellowed composition notebooks. He didn't know it yet, but he had just uncovered a tragedy so profound, so intensely cruel, that no Hollywood horror movie could ever match the sheer heartbreak of what happened inside these four walls. This is the story of Elena Vance, and the horrifying reality of what it truly cost her to stay alive. To understand the nightmare uncovered in that attic, we have to go back 25 years to the chilly autumn of 1994. Elena Vance was a vibrant, deeply devoted 24-year-old mother living in a tight-knit suburban neighborhood. To the outside world, she had everything: a beautiful home, a seemingly stable life, and most importantly, her two toddlers Lily and Leo, whom she loved more than life itself. But behind closed doors, her life was a prison of control. Her husband, Arthur Vance, was a deeply insecure, fiercely possessive man who monitored her every move, isolated her from her friends, and controlled the family finances down to the exact penny. Neighbors would later recall a chilling detail. Elena was rarely seen outside without Arthur by her side, and her smile always seemed to fade the moment his car pulled into the driveway. By October of 1994, Elena had reached her absolute breaking point. She couldn't let her children grow up in an environment suffocated by fear. Secretly, over several agonizing weeks, she managed to pack a single suitcase, hiding it under the stairs, and made plans to flee to her mother's house across the state. On the rainy night of October 14th, after putting Lily and Leo to bed, she finally confronted Arthur, telling him she was leaving and taking the children with her. She never made it to her mother's house. The very next morning, Arthur calmly called the police to report that his wife had abandoned him and their children in the middle of the night. He painted a picture of a selfish, unstable woman who simply cracked under the pressure of motherhood and ran away to start a new life. Investigators searched the property, but with no forensic evidence of struggle in the main living areas, no body, and Arthur's chillingly cooperative demeanor, the case quickly stalled. Elena Vance had simply vanished into thin air. For the next 25 years, a suffocating silence settled over the Vance household. Arthur raised Lily and Leo with an iron fist, constantly reminding them of their mother's supposed betrayal. He forged a narrative of resentment, drilling it into their young minds that the woman who gave them birth didn't love them enough to stay. Lily and Leo grew up under the heavy cloud of maternal abandonment, their hearts broken before they were old enough to fully understand grief. They lived, played, and slept in that house, completely unaware of the monstrous deception anchoring their lives. Decades bled into one another. Arthur never remarried, never moved, and strictly forbade anyone from ever entering the attic, claiming it held too many painful memories of the wife who walked out on him. In early 2019, Arthur suffered a fatal heart loss in his sleep, dying peaceful, comfortable, and completely unpunished in his bed. With their father gone, the adult sibling, Lily and Leo, decided to sell the childhood home that had caused them so much emotional pain. They hired Marcus to modernize the property, starting with the closed-off attic. And that brings us back to the moment the sledgehammer cracked open the drywall, revealing the terrifying secret Arthur Vance took to his grave. When the police arrived at the scene, entering the hidden 6-by-8-foot soundproofed cell, they discovered a living nightmare. This wasn't a historical relic. It was a highly sophisticated, terrifyingly organized dungeon. The room contained a twin mattress stripped bare, a chemical toilet, a small battery-powered lantern, and those hundreds of empty water jugs. But the most agonizing discovery was carved directly into the interior drywall. Hands scratched into the plaster, repeated thousands of times, were two names: Lily and Leo. Elena hadn't run away. She had been trapped right above her children's heads for over 2 decades. The escalation of emotional horror peaked when forensic behavioral experts began analyzing the yellowed composition notebooks Marcus found on the floor. They weren't just random writings, they were Elena's daily diaries, a meticulous, agonizing chronicle of a mother's survival against impossible odds. The first entries from late 1994 describe the terrifying initial days of her captivity. Arthur had ambushed her after their argument, drugged her, and dragged her up the hidden staircase he had spent months secretly building behind the master bedroom closet. He told her that if she ever tried to escape or scream, he would hurt the children. He gave her a choice: live quietly in the dark where he could keep her forever, or risk the lives of Lily and Leo. Elena chose to survive for her children. As the years in the diary progressed, the psychological torment detailed in her writing becomes almost too painful to comprehend. Elena described the layout of her prison, noting how the floorboards were thin enough that she could hear the muffled, distant sounds of her children's lives downstairs. She wrote about hearing Lily take her very first steps, weeping quietly into her mattress so Arthur wouldn't hear her. She wrote about hearing the joyous, distant laughter of Leo's 5th birthday party, holding her hands against the cold floorboards just to feel a fraction of the vibration of her son's happiness. The sheer emotional resilience required to hear your children crying for you, to hear your captor telling them that you abandoned them, and to remain silent to protect their safety, is a level of maternal love that defies human comprehension. The diary entries also revealed a terrifying escalation in Arthur's cruelty. He would occasionally enter the room not to provide food, but to torment her with updates about how well the children were doing without her, explicitly telling her that they had forgotten her face. Yet, despite the psychological warfare, Elena refused to let her mind break. She used her diary to write letters to Lily and Leo, filling pages with advice she would never get to give them, telling Lily how to navigate her first heartbreak, and telling Leo how to grow into a kind, gentle man completely unlike his father. She calculated the calendar by the changing temperatures of the uninsulated attic, marking the passage of 21 long, agonizing years in total isolation. The final, most heartbreaking entries in the notebook date back to the winter of 2015. Elena's handwriting, once sharp and elegant, had become a shaky, barely legible crawl. Decades of severe malnutrition, lack of sunlight, and medical neglect had finally broken her physical body down. She knew her time was running out. Her very last entry is not filled with hatred for Arthur, but with an overwhelming, breathless love for her children. She wrote that her only regret was that she couldn't hold them one last time, but she passed away knowing she kept them safe from a monster downstairs. She survived in that dark, suffocating room for 21 years, living on mere scraps and water, fueled entirely by the auditory echo of her children's voices filtering through the ceiling. When Lily and Leo were handed their mother's diaries by investigators, their world completely shattered. The intense grief of realizing their mother had never abandoned them was compounded by the torturous realization that she was alive, suffering, and loving them from just 15 feet above their bedrooms while they grew up. They had spent 25 years resentful of a woman who was actively sacrificing her sanity and her life to ensure their safety. The fury of the community boiled over at the realization that Arthur Vance had escaped earthly justice, dying peacefully as a respected neighborhood elder while his wife rotted in the attic. The story of Elena Vance leaves us with a profound, lingering ache, a stark reminder of the hidden evils that can transpire behind the most ordinary suburban facades. If this deeply moving account of maternal sacrifice and true crime tragedy touched your heart, please take a moment to hit the like button. Drop a comment below sharing your thoughts on Elena's incredible resilience, and subscribe to the channel with notifications turned on so you never miss another deep dive into the darkest corners of human history. Thank you for watching, and may Elena finally rest in peace.